It's that time of year again. Fresh calendars, big plans, and somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice whispering that this year probably won't be any different than the last. There's some interesting research that shows that the older we get, the fewer New Year's resolutions we actually set. And it's not hard to figure out why. Most of us have learned the hard way that those ambitious goals we make in January, they tend to fizzle out before we even get to February. We've been through that cycle enough to know the pattern. But what if the problem isn't the goal itself? After all, we do want to get better. The fact you listen to this podcast shows you are someone who cares about self-improvement and about making changes that can last. So what if it's something deeper? What if it is these voices, these parts of ourselves that show up right when we're trying to make a change? Perhaps our inner critic, that part of us that's a perfectionist, or maybe our people pleaser. These saboteurs have a way of hijacking our best intentions, and most of us don't even realize that they're running the show or where they're even coming from, and that they probably started from a good place and with good intentions. Today on The Grit Show, I'm talking with Dr. Kelly Hamilton about why change feels so hard, especially at the start of a new year. We're going to explore what these saboteurs actually are, how to recognize them when they're driving your decisions, and most importantly, what we can actually do about them. Kelly introduces us to some simple and practical ways that we can actually address them. If you're ready to make 2026 the year you finally break the cycle, this conversation is for you. Welcome to The Grit Show, where our focus is growth on purpose. I'm your host, Shawna Rodrigues, and I'm honored to be part of this community as we journey together with our grit intact to learn more about how to thrive and how to get the most out of life. It means a lot that you are here today. As you listen, I encourage you to think of who may appreciate the tidbits of knowledge we are sharing and to take a moment to pass this along to them. Everyone appreciates a friend that thinks of them, and these conversations are meant to be shared and to spark even more connections. Today, I get to introduce you all to Dr. Kelly Hamilton. He has his degree in industrial and organizational psychology, but part of the reason I'm excited for us to get to speak with him today is because there's so much more to him. He wants to help deepen self-awareness, encourage others to find their greater courage, their creativity, and their resilience. But the things about him that drew me to him is that he is so much more well-rounded, and he takes things from personal experience and adds that to what he brings to his work. Part of the things that you'll get from him is that he actually has a background in media and marketing, which you can kind of sense in his way of being able to connect to folks that I think will resonate with the work that he's going to share with us today. And he's also a budding cartoonist, which helps you to see that there's this creative side that I think helps to make him more relatable to all of us. So thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Kelly Hamilton.
Thanks for having me, Shawna. Super excited to talk to you.
Yes, and I think this is great timing because we are on the cusp of the new year. And even though a lot of us are in this holiday mindset, a lot of us are staring down that we only have a few more weeks left of 2025. And as we're looking forward to that, I would love for us to have a conversation looking at 2025. Where do you think a lot of people are at when they start to think about new year, new you, what they want to do differently in the coming year?
Yes. So looking at 2026 is on all of our minds. I think, Shawna, it's so interesting. I was looking into this around New Year's resolutions and New Year's goals, like the research behind, like, why do we even do it? You know, I don't know if you've read much about that, but it's so interesting. It's sort of this temporal or time-based moment, like New Year's, our birthdays, where researchers have found that it creates this little distance because it interrupts the day-to-day, a normal day-to-day, where we go, oh, there's this opportunity to turn the chapter, and a little bit of psychological distance is created where we can think, oh, I have new ideas about myself. You know, there's a sort of an opportunity to change things up. You can kind of take a step back. So it makes sense. Like I think intuitively know that. But it also that then creates this like attachment to the new me, right? Like I have a little I do this for myself around my birthday. Do you notice for yourself, birthday or New Year's? Like, where do you start to think about goals?
Oh, well, luckily, my birthday is 6 months after Christmas and 6 months before Christmas. So, like, for me, that's like this nice thing that both of them are like this equidistant from each other. So, both are times when I think I start to think about this is a new beginning for things, if that makes
Yeah, yeah. So it's like because time is interrupted, there's these moments where we naturally take a step back and look at our lives from this wider lens and we go, hey, how am I doing? And what do I want to do next? Or who do I want to be next? So what they found is they call it a fresh start effect, where there's this just like old me, new me. And so there's that slogan of like new you, new me, but there is some truth to that. Like I get to kind of think about this fresh start. And, it's something that I think you're right. Like I'm already starting to do it. I think about things kind of slow down around Thanksgiving here in the US. And it's just like, okay, I feel like I want to think about this for 2026. Like, how do I slow down more? How do I work out more? We all have there are some trends in the types of goals we set. But if that's sort of what I think is already on all of our minds, is kind of how do we want to be and how do we want to change in the new year?
Yes. I've never been a fan of New Year's resolutions, so to speak. And yet I find myself telling everyone because 2025 has been the year that I had breast cancer and I've had all this medical stuff just kind of take over. And so I see myself looking for 2026 for all of this change for me that I get to focus on something different. I want my medical stuff to be in the background and health to be the focus for the new year. And I want for my business to shift. So it's so funny that as much as resolutions aren't my thing, I still have this very much like new start mentality about 2026 needs to be a different focus for me. And honestly, I'll be disappointed if a lot of that follows me into the new year, right?
Yeah. So I want to close that chapter
Yes.
and have a new one. I'm with you. I don't like resolutions either. I think when I was younger person, I used that and I was like, yeah, resolution. I want to stop doing this. I feel it now. It's too negative or constrictive, like too negative for me to think, it makes me think about things I need to stop or things I need to promise, right? Or what I'm going to resolve to do. And it just makes me way too perfectionistic, which we'll get into in a moment. Like this sort of voices come online, like, whereas intentions or goals is more where I like to think of them as, right? So however we want to think about it, for all of us, it's like change, right? How do we, what change starts to be a thought?
Yes, I love that. I love that. So let's talk a little bit because we're going to get into that a lot. But I would love for us to talk a little bit more about your specific background in training and industrial and organizational psychology is not something a lot of people know about. So tell us a little bit more about what led you to that and a little bit about your coaching and kind of what you do.
Sure. So I am an executive coach and a consultant. And yes, my background now is in industrial organizational psychology, which is just a fancy way of saying that I study how people show up at work and manage their careers. So it's the science of human behavior at work. And I'm a career changer. So I as previously had a 15-year career as a founder and owner of a media company based here in St. Louis, where I live now. And I built that and ran that with partners. And it was fun and exciting and all the things you can imagine of the magazine. If you remember those, we all read magazines. And it was a great time. I learned a lot. And over time, really, we were very young when we started it. We were early 20s. And so we learned a lot of lessons along the way about building a team, motivating a team, all the things you could imagine, running a business. And decided at some point, late 30s, that, what's next for me? Thinking about big changes, career change, growth. I love your slogan, growth on purpose, because it took a lot of stepping back and thinking about my work identity, which was so tied to my company, which can happen for so many founders, of course, and worked with a coach to really get clear on where did I want to go next, where did I want to grow next, and what did I need. And it took a lot of work. So then I decided to go ahead and take a fresh start, if you will. But it really was something that I was aware of for a while. It wasn't like an overnight awareness, right? It was growing over time, about 5 years, and then was like ready to make the jump. So I decided to apply for full-time PhD programs and moved across the country from here to Portland, Oregon, entered a PhD program that started the day after I turned 40 And I did that through my 5 years and then came back and doing it now. So that's the big career move that I'm proud to have made, and definitely grew on purpose. Again, I love your slogan. Yeah.
Yes.
So I get to coach people. I get to work. I spend my days helping leaders and entrepreneurs, but leaders in corporations or entrepreneurs better understand themselves and their patterns, so they can make the changes they want to make and lead their teams the way they want to lead them, and show up authentically and act with courage and creativity in an increasingly complex world.
That's so important. I think it's amazing how much we expect individuals to step into roles and develop into who they need to be to do the work in powerful ways, and just expect that to happen naturally and not understand how much reflection and work that requires. So it's so powerful to have individuals like yourself that are doing that type of work to really develop and hone that and to do that. So this is very important. And we're so grateful to have you here talking to us more about this.
Yeah. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So as we look to the new year and all of us reflecting on like what we'd like to see different for ourselves. And I feel like with New Year's, the weather too, I feel like we're kind of almost hibernating a little bit right now and like planning how we want to come out the other side of it a little bit as we get these cozy days when it's rainy or snowy and whatever else, to see like how we want to like burgeon into spring and come out differently, right? A little bit. So as we're having this reflective period, what do you think like prevents us from actually successfully doing this? Because I used to know the statistics on resolutions is not promising.
Right. It's true. There's some newer research that shows that like 9% of Americans who make resolutions complete them. Not very high. Yeah.
No, not very high.
And that like 23% of people quit their resolutions by the end of the first week and 43% by the end of January. So we'll definitely spend a good amount of time getting into why that is. I also just want to note that there was research from just last year from the Pew Center that found that as we age, we set fewer resolutions. But I think that really is what you and I just talked about, that we tend to frame it more around goals. We've also learned, maybe not great, maybe we failed in the past, getting into statistics. If I've already quit most of the time by end of January, then maybe I'm not going to set them anymore. So I don't like that. But I'm just naming that is also true, that we might have kind of gotten burned on our own goal setting in the past.
Yes. And that's not just setting that, just having a resolution isn't what we need, that there's actually more to it. And I think that there's like an eating pattern difference that I made. And I actually had a guest, Jen Stevens, talked about intermittent fasting, which that term always scared me. And then she came on, I learned from her, and I actually like started like little steps. And that's like the key, right? With habit change, just little steps. And so I started doing, the first step was not to drink sugary drinks. And I did that for all of December. And then like by January, I was starting to think about like doing the window thing. So it was not set on a time of year. It was actually set on me learning what I needed and changing my habits and doing small habit changes over time, instead of just like one day waking up and now I'm going to be somebody different, which is the resolutions kind of imply, right?
Yes. So I think that a few things tend to get in our ways of actually accomplishing them. One is that we tend to set overly ambitious goals. As humans, we're prone to the planning fallacy, which is that we vastly underestimate how much time and effort it takes to do things. And you just mentioned habit change takes, on average, about 2 months for like new habits to really be something that's more automatic for us. Some research shows it even takes longer than that. But that's one thing, is that we tend to over plan. So we might decide to overhaul our entire lives in December, like right now. Like we've just eaten too much at Thanksgiving. We eat all the things in December, and then we want to overhaul our entire lives by January. Like, let's work out more. Let's don't eat this. Let's not do this. And then we get overwhelmed by mid-January and think we failed. But in reality, we just didn't set as realistic of goals. That's like the first thing that happened. Another one is we have these hidden competing agreements with ourselves. That's a word I'm borrowing from Robert Keegan and Lisa Lay's research on immunity to change. Are you familiar with this one?
No, but I love it. Yeah, it's resonating with just the words you're using.
Well, they call it hidden competing agreements. And the research found that even when we really want a change, we often have an unconscious competing agreement to something else that's blocking the new goal. So, for example, if I have a goal to launch a podcast or do more writing or work out 5 days a week, any of those, I may not realize that I unconsciously am not going to follow through because I've already committed to spending more time with my family or
Yes.
getting a promotion at work or whatever it is. It's going to like, time is time, right? We can't create more.
Yes.
So I love that framework to go, you know what? There's a hidden competing agreement here. Like, this is why I'm not showing up to that goal. It's because I've already like said I'm going to do this other thing. And so what I like about that is that it also makes it conscious. If I can make it conscious, then it allows me to, I don't know, forgive myself and have a little self-compassion, change my goals. I don't know. What did it bring up for you?
Well, I think it brings it two things. I love like the hidden, I just love that term, hidden competing agreement. Like that just like brings so much to light, right? That we have that. I'm like, oh yeah, that totally names it. And it also brings the saying to mind that like every time you say yes, you're saying no to something. And that people don't recognize that by saying yes to this, they have to say no to something else. And they just keep saying yes to everything, but that's not possible. So you have to figure out what you're saying no to by saying yes to this. And that hidden agreement is what you're not realizing, that yes, you told your child you would put them to bed every night, but you also said yes to being on this committee that's going to have evening meetings. So you can't possibly put your child to bed every night because you're going to be doing this meeting that's going to be doing this. And if you also have to get this project done, no matter how late you work, then you can't possibly also do this. So realizing like what the cost of things, because people, the hidden costs, right? The hidden cost of things goes to that hidden competing agreements, that you don't realize the hidden costs of things that you're paying constantly, not recognizing that it's there.
Yeah, I love your example of putting the kids to bed every night. You're going to compete with being on a committee. So maybe if someone has a goal of, hey, I really want to get involved in the new year with, you know, like my kid's school or some other organization that I want to volunteer for. Maybe as part of their goal setting, it's, are there any other commitments that might keep me from doing it? That's just sort of an idea of like a way for people to proactively kind of catch it. Yeah. So that's the second one. It's really powerful because they just sort of pull us back to our old behaviors. Like, so when 2 weeks into the year or a month into the year, we haven't made progress, we sort of like feel stuck, right? And it could be just because of this. So thinking about what they're falling victim to. Now, the third one is these inner patterns that we all have that just resist change. Humans don't really like change anyway. You know, we're used to like predictability, but we also all have our own special mix of limiting beliefs about ourselves and mental habits, things that hold us back when we want to make change. And we can refer to those as saboteurs. So these is like when you hear about like the phrase getting in our own way, this is what we're talking about. You know, it's like, you know, you hear that and I'm like, what do you mean get in my own way? Well, we do get in our own way. I never really liked that phrase, but it makes sense. It's like self-sabotage. This is like this idea.
Yes. Well, and I think that we don't even recognize all the things that we do or say to ourselves that is getting in our own way. And we say things like, oh, I'm just not good at math, or oh, I'm just not good at eating healthy, or I'm terrible at exercise and I don't do well at that. And it's not that to say, if you said more specifically, like, you know, when I get running, I tire easily, because that's like resolvable. Because if I tire easily when I run, then I can build up so that I don't tire easily when I run. But if I say I'm bad at running, I'm not good at running, I don't do well with running, and you're like, oh, well, then you're not going to.
Yeah. And like, where did that belief come from? And it could be that there's something there from your past experiences with running. Like, you didn't like it. It could just be like, hey, I don't like running.
Yes.
Having a preference, right? But for sometimes it is that we have these inner like voices that come up that hold us back. At one point in time, they were trying to protect us, but they become blocks. And so you would call these saboteurs. You want to talk about what that is?
Yes, I'd love to.
Okay. So the term saboteur, for those who aren't as familiar, comes from this framework called the Positive Intelligence Framework, called PQ for short. It was created by this gentleman, Shirzad Shamim. He was a longtime executive coach, a faculty member at Stanford, and he developed this model as a way for leaders to recognize these internal patterns that get in their way, things like perfectionism, inner critic, people pleasing, overachieving. I think your head nodding because we're on a video, but it's like these are things that can come up for all of us. Some of us have all of them, right? And in PQ, a saboteur is basically a protective mental habit. So it once developed to help you succeed or stay safe, but now just limits you or blocks you from a change. So if you think about in leadership development or in your career, you may want to take opportunities or a challenging work assignment that would help you with this goal of maybe moving up. But for some reason, you might not be aware of it, but you might be holding back, sort of taking the assignment because of some fear, for example, right? So it's similar, this framework is used a lot in performance coaching and leadership development. It is not a therapy model, but it's a lot like internal family system. It's like ISF. So it does overlap a lot with models that some people may know. And I know you're familiar with this one. So they talk in IFS, they talk about parts, right? And that's these different internal voices that came online to try to protect us. The similarity is that both frameworks assume these patterns aren't malicious. They didn't develop to harm us. The opposite. They developed to protect us and they're adapted, right? So we learned them early on. The difference, again, is that IFS is a clinical therapy approach. This one, PQ, was developed specifically for coaching and performance and daily decision making. So you'll also see echoes of this in coactive coaching, which was the one I was trained in. And so I use this a lot, the saboteurs with coachees, where we'll talk about saboteurs. It's something that's creative. It's something that people can imagine for themselves. These like voices, even Dick Schwartz, who created IFS, talked about parts as these inner beings inside. I love that. like who's this little guy inside me who's trying to be overly perfectionistic, for example. I think it is very creative. So in a work context or with coaching, I'm not a therapist, so we're not doing therapy with parts work to heal deep trauma per se, right? But we are thinking about like, where do you want to go from now to where do you want to go? What are your goals? What's coming up that's holding you back and getting you stuck?
Yeah. So when you say coactive coaching, what is the unique thing about the coactive coaching model, or what does that mean when you say coactive?
Yeah. Coactive coaching was from the Coactive Training Institute. They are the coaching training program that's for advanced training education. And it's been around the oldest and longest in the US. And so really pioneers in the coaching industry. The meaning of the word coactive is getting at sort of like being and doing. A lot of us in coaching sometimes we come to coaching because we really want to just change our behavior or we want something to change in our lives, of course. Big benefit to kind of the being state as well. So they use this collective model we play a lot with that. And so it's something like Saboteurs is an example of like staying present in the moment to experience like what is going on rather than just trying to make a big change in our skills or our behaviors or whatever at work. We have to explore. So it does allow for a little more playfulness too. So if you're kind of you're like, okay, I'm struggling with this. Well, what's coming up? I'm noticing a saboteur. Is there a saboteur here? So we can kind of like play with it a little bit to get a little deeper.
Nice. So it's not just it's doing, but it's also the deeper understanding, the reflective piece. So it has both like this internal element as well as an external element.
Because I feel like we have to be able to get into some depth to really understand our deeper patterns. And that's a big part of before change is self-awareness, right?
Yes, exactly. That's fabulous. So that's what differentiates that from just the coaching models.
Sure. Yeah. So there's, of course, the inner critic, and that would be one that is universal to all of us for sure. That one forms usually to help us avoid mistakes or embarrassment, right? So later in life, it can make us be afraid to take on challenges or new opportunities because we have a sort of a harsh inner judge that's telling us we're not doing something right or we might get it wrong. then maybe don't even try, right?
Yes.
The perfectionist, aka mine is called Mr. Stickler.
I like that he has a name. Yes.
Yeah, that usually develops to get approval, to get maintain safety, to sort of stand out. For me, it kind of made me bulletproof at a young age. I was new. I'm part of the LGBT community. Back in the '90s in Texas, it was not a place where you came out, and so there was a overachieving, and that's a different saboteur. But hey, Mr. Stickler and a hyperachiever are BFF. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
double whammy. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to make it perfect, and then no one can really judge me for anything because I'm going to be the best, right? And so there's a way for us to get self-worth and value through achievement and through making things really good and high quality. You can imagine how, as a kid, that or younger self, that could really help me get some needs met. It was adaptive.
Yes.
But then later, it's like it could just block me. So it could just make me over prepare for things and not trust myself, right? At this point, it's like, I don't need him around all the time. Like, Mr. Stickler, like, I got it. I'm good.
Yeah. So the perfectionist is like you're going to work those 80 hours to finish the project instead of be able to get it done in 60 hours because it has to be perfect. There's nothing less than perfect. And then when somebody comes back and they've changed the goalpost for you, it's a complete meltdown because you did it perfect according to that. And so that's the way it's sabotaging you because nothing can truly be perfect either, really. So that's the way it's sabotaging you.
Totally. So in like the example of like a New Year's goal, it's like, okay, well, if I set a goal, it's like, let's go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm like really motivated to get that best year of fitness in my life. Let's do this. Well, like 3 weeks later, I've only been able to make it 2 days a week. Well, if I have a strong inner perfectionist, then that guy shows up and is like, the whole thing's blown. Yeah, like wasn't at the at the level that I expected of myself. So that's going to be leading me to maybe abandon the goal. It's kind of like, okay, it's not perfect. Like, where do I go from here? And then if you've got that hyperachiever, that's what made me set that 5 day week. Like, who was that? Why was I even saying 5 days a week in the first place?
Yes.
But now that I have awareness on that, I am not setting like on a goal. It's like I set a new habit. Start small.
Yes. And when you show up and like the parking lot is completely full at the gym, so you can't go to the gym because there's nowhere to park and you have a meeting at a certain time. So then when you do park like 10 miles away and then have to walk to the gym and then you get there and you can only be on the machine for 15 minutes because you still have to shower before you have to leave for work, then you didn't eat that perfect thing. And so why are you even doing this instead of being able to look at all the other factors that made it so that it's impossible to be perfect with the real world? Yes.
So fitness goals, like the number one goal most people set, or health related goals, right? So let's say someone doesn't have the strong perfectionist part. Let's say they had a people pleaser part, a strong inner people pleaser. That part developed also probably from a young age to stay safe, to get some needs met. And then now later in life, it can block them from following through on goals or change or setting boundaries, right? With something like a fitness goal or health goal, going to the gym, they're going to feel stuck. They could feel stuck between, hey, my friend wants to see me, or my family, my parents really want me to come over every evening, or whatever it is. There's going to be a strong need to please, or a strong need to please. That's going to pull them away from their goal, right? It's going to be aware of like these things are going to show up because they're going to create inner conflict in ways they're going to make us not know what to do because it's going to hold us back from following through on the change we want for ourselves. It's really about what do I want and need, and how is the strong voice like jumping in and making us not follow through.
Yes. How many different areas are there for saboteurs? Is there like we basically all have the same set of ones that we can go to, or?
Yeah, really, it's like IFS, they would say it's a creative realm. So there could be many more that you might come up with on your own as people start to play with this and get to know it. They do name, like, let's say about 15 of them. So they are sort of the ones that are out there and a lot of us have, but it doesn't mean that we all have them or that all of them are very loud. So, for example, there's the judge, or the inner critic, aka the judge. We all have that. The perfectionistic part. There's the hyperachiever, the pleaser. There's hypervigilant. So hypervigilant would be keeping us safe where environments were unpredictable, maybe in our younger years. So sort of this vigilant is always like looking out for threats. And I have a bit of this too. It's kind of like, is someone going to be, maybe like, is the other shoe going to drop, right? Or like, it's fear based, right? That can make us just feel overly vigilant and lead to some anxiety. So that's one. There's another one that's like the avoider, the kind of avoiding things, and that help them kind of get out of uncomfortable situations, right? So you can imagine that we might all have some of these, but a lot of times they're kind of low on a lot of them. There is an assessment that we can point people to that helps kind of surface awareness. But a lot of people will play with these just by sitting and kind of meditating or reflecting or journaling. I've also drawn some of mine as I started to play with this and be like, all right, here's this character. What's he like? And asking them questions so you can kind of get to know them better.
Yes. And finding the things that are actually keeping you from achieving what you're setting out to do, whether that's specific goals or that's whether it's hindering your relationships or hindering your success at work or hindering your ability to get what you want, really. So what's the antidote? What do you do about this then, if that's keeping you from getting to where you want to be?
Right. So if you think about in general, with saboteurs, I think it's getting familiar with what yours are, because how they play out, who they are for me and who they are for you, maybe are going to be different, and how they show up for me versus you also might be different. Thinking about the New Year's goals and how this would apply, if you're thinking about that health related goal and you set a goal of changing your diet or let's stay with going to the gym 3 days a week, it's a better goal. Then you still might have the perfectionistic part, if that's a strong, noisy voice for you, or the people pleasing part. Show up and go, if I do that, then I'm going to disappoint this other person, right? Or if I don't hit it 3 times a week every week, then I've failed and maybe I should just give up on the whole goal entirely. I don't know about you, Shawna, but I've had that before where I'm like, if I set a New Year's goal, I'm going to do something at a certain frequency of the week. I have an inner rebel, which is a totally different saboteur. Okay. My inner rebel is like, oh yeah, you think so? I'll show you. I'm going to watch Game of Thrones again or something, or whatever. And so there's just this inner little battle, right? So let's say any of those saboteurs shows up. Well, I'm going to go to writing yourself a big fat permission slip. Okay. This is one thing that I think people can go to, which is especially for perfectionistic folks, people with this inner pleaser, because both of those have to do with other people's validation of you and like other people's priorities at times, right? And so permission slip, this is borrowing Brené Brown, includes it in one of her books, and I've seen it in a couple of other places, but I love it because it is giving yourself permission to set a boundary, do what you need to do. That might be what the inner people pleaser needs to be told, right?
Yes, and I think it's valuable because I think that first piece you talked about having that reflection to see like which thing resonated. So like for me, if it was the avoider that resonated, right? So I feel like that I avoid things that are hard. And so if I'm like, I'll just say I'm going to do the gym and then I avoid going, but actually I need to like start the process to go to the gym or whatever else. And so I give myself permission that if I don't go to the gym the first day, it means I'm not going to start the process and at least, put on my gym shoes and go on a walk until I get to the gym after the first 3 weeks when everyone else stops going, right? And so give myself like a permission slip that like tailors to what my saboteur is. So if mine was avoider and if it's people pleasing, that like I'll do it even if it's important to me to get to the gym and I know it's going to disappoint my boss that I didn't get them coffee on the way to work because I went to the gym and it took longer, that I'm still going to go to the gym, even though I feel that tinge when I walk by my boss, I don't hand them coffee in the morning. So that you give yourself that permission to like get past what you know is your saboteur. So whichever one that it might be.
Yes, I love that you said to get past, because that is something we would work with including in coaching, is like, how do you bypass the saboteur? Because again, the saboteur is trying to help you in some way, shape, or form, or trying to protect you. But you got to be like, okay, thank you. And a people pleaser. I know you were helping me before, but for now, I'm okay. And I want to do this for myself. So please have to go find another job to do, so just bypassing. So I love that.
Thank you, Mr. Stickler. But hey, that I didn't go 5 times this week. I am actually only need to go 3 times a week or twice a week, and I'm still making progress.
Yeah. So permission to not be perfect, right? To take small experiments, permission to change the goal. But that might be because it's this perfectionistic part. I'm like, I said it was going to be 5 days a week. And then the inner critic comes online. Well, why do you need to change the goal? What's wrong with you? So giving yourself permission to change the goal, to show up for yourself, to whatever it is that you need to do to basically feel okay making the change you want to make is one strategy.
No, I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's the biggest thing for us to walk away with it as we reflect about the change we want to make, because it's already percolating. All of us have something that's on that back burner that's probably going to rise to the surface this month as we prepare for the new year. That as that happens, to start like recognizing, like, well, what has gotten in the way in the past? Especially as you said, at our age, we're less likely to be making a lot of resolutions or goals because, like, we probably burned ourselves in the past. So what can we do differently? And that can be to know like what saboteur might have gotten in our way, and then to give ourselves a permission slip to say like, I give myself permission to only go 2 days a week. My goal might be 3 days a week, but I give myself permission to only go 2 days a week. And if I go 1 day a week, I'm still making progress. Or I give myself permission to have a twinge when I'm not pleasing everyone else because I'm reaching this goal, and that's okay, that I'll have that twinge and I'll still work towards my goal, even though I have that twinge, and I won't let that stop me.
Love it. There's another thing that I like to do and give people that we could talk about briefly that is around expanding your inner board of directors. So the saboteurs are essentially these voices, right? And one phrase that we can use to describe these voices is our inner board of directors. You have positive voices there too that you can create. And there are some common ones that we could also talk about. But if we can, when we're trying to make changes, draw on these characters too, because they're allies. And that's what we call them, as allies. So we have saboteurs and we have allies. And the allies are people like the inner champion, the inner character that really like lifts you up and like motivates you by like in a positive way. I have one that I love. It's like the inner maverick. It's kind of like, instead of the rebel, like the maverick is like bold, a little disruptive, but willing to try something new. When I can channel him, it's like, let's do this. And I'm going to try something new because it's like maverick energy. Can kind of help me combat a little bit of the perfectionist who might want to wait until it's perfect. The maverick be like more bold.
Step out a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Have you named your inner maverick?
I have not. I just call him a maverick. I probably need to give him a name.
You do. I like that. You got to have, Mr. Stickler's got to have like the opposite end of the spectrum a little bit,
And there's also like the inner artist, which I just created myself, but that's probably going to be a common one too. There's also the inner warrior, which should be like, like drawing boundaries. Like when you need to draw boundaries, you've got a strong people-pleasing saboteur. The inner warrior is sort of that one that they might even have he or they might actually have like a sword or whatever they need to draw boundaries and protect your needs. So I like playing with that. The sage is the one that's sort of that wise, grounded part, like the self, like the higher self. You'll see that in like ISS. And so the sage is that grounded part that sees the bigger picture and that you kind of always want to come back to. And that could be like, if you think about your higher self, like you're the CEO, right? So you've got the board of directors, but you get to be the CEO. So the goal is to be able to listen to all the parts and still choose who you want to tap into in a particular situation, like showing up to your goals and not giving up on them, right?
Yes. You heard from this side, but you also have more people to hear from and more input to receive so that you can get to your goals still and still achieve them. Even though you've heard this side, you can also hear this side to balance it out. I love that. That's fabulous.
Yeah. So What else do we not cover? Yeah. Here's another like,
That's been very valuable. I think that that's a lot for folks to kind of take in and look forward to processing and implementing as they look forward to their goals and their way of looking at this new start. I love the way of looking at this as a new start for the new year.
yeah.
Yes, definitely. That's been very valuable. And I think that folks are going to want to keep in touch with you, Kelly. Like, what is the best way for people to follow you and keep in touch with you?
Yeah. I would think the best way to follow me and keep in touch with me would be on Substack. I started writing there more and even talked about my inner Mr. Stickler in one of my first posts. So I do write a lot about these topics. And then Instagram, you can find me at Kelly Hamilton, PhD on either platform.
Wonderful. We'll make sure that's in the show notes as well as like your full bio so folks can get a little more depth to you. And I hope you do a future post that shares what you've named the counter to Mr. Stickler. That'd be very exciting. And I'm curious do you think you're ever going to get to to have your cartoons that go with this up on your Substack? Because that would be very exciting to look forward to.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's one out there already on maybe on Mr. Stickler might be up there somewhere. And so, yeah, I think I could. I'd like to have them dialoguing and talking to each other in a culture.
That's very exciting. I love that. That's even more fun to look forward to on your Substack. Like, 'cause you have a lot to offer wisdom-wise sharing, but that'll be a fun little boon to be able to get there to see that as well. So that's a fun bonus. This has been very helpful. And I really think so to drive home, I really think that what do you feel like is the most important step? Either that permission slip or that reflection piece? Which one do you think folks should kind of hone in on as they walk away from the podcast to take with them?
Yeah, I would say to get ahead of some of the things that will come up later, like a month later, like set your goals based on how you want to be in the new year. And then letting yourself in a month, give yourself permission to adjust the goal, to take them slow. Kind of letting yourself know it's not going to be perfect and to adjust. And so that's another one thing that I would want people to feel, that when we're setting goals, to know that it's okay for us to give ourselves permission to then change.
That's perfect. I think that's very helpful because that's probably why people don't complete them, because they're holding themselves to a standard they set in a different place before they have the real world application. So I think that's a beautiful way to continue your goals, to understand that you can adjust the goalposts to real life, because when we set them, we're not always taking into account real life.
100%.
That's so valuable. Thank you so much, Kelly. This has been so helpful. I'm so excited for folks to be able to apply this and feel like they have the right mindset to move forward into the next year and to follow you on Substack and get that Substack in late January. That'll probably be a great reminder for them.
Thank you so much, Shawna. This has been great. So good to meet with you and talk to you today.
Thank you. I value the time we shared together today. Thank you for making time to be here and to continue taking steps towards growth and bringing more ease into your life. I'd love for us to stay connected on Instagram at Shawna Podcasts or at the.grit.show. There's even a link in bio at the.grit.show where you can send me an email to let me know what you thought of today's episode. Hearing from you helps to make the effort that goes into producing these episodes worthwhile. After all, you're why I'm here. And since it's been a while since you've heard this, you are the only one of you that this world has got. And that really does mean something. I hope you realize that. I'll be back again soon, and I hope you're following along or subscribed so that you'll know and be here too.